It has been a number of years since I began excavating the ruins of Kandar with a group of my colleagues. I believe I have made a significant find in the Kandarian runes, a volume of ancient Sumerian burial practices and funerary incantations. It is entitled Naturan de Manto, roughly translated, Book of the Dead. It deals with demons, demon resurrection, and those forces which roam the forest and dark bowers of man's domain. The first few pages warn that these enduring creatures may lie dormant, but are never truly dead. They may be recalled to active life through the incantations presented in this book. The book is bound in human flesh and inked in human blood.
Duh! Ew!
And mine eyes have seen the confusion of who places her trust in thee, my God.
This dude is terrible, man of God.
In the name of our Lord Jesus Christ.
Please stop! You scared yet, Jamie?
And now for our feature presentation.
Hello everyone, and welcome to episode 2 of Dylan and Chunky's Horrifying Tales of Horror. Tonight we're going to be talking about remakes along with some submissions from you guys from TikTok, so make sure you stay tuned for that. We also have a true crime segment on the show tonight with a music video, some film suggestions about New York City horror, and we're going to kick it off right now with our good friend David from Journey from a Cinephile podcast to talk about a movie from the 1980s called The Keep. So, thank you for tuning in. We hope you enjoy the episode.
Hello and welcome, listeners. This is the first time we're doing something like that, so if I seem a little bit stiff, that's probably going to explain it. I mean, I've done some of these recordings with other people, but let me introduce myself. I am David Garrett Jr. I am from Journey with a Cinephile, a horror movie podcast, and I want to first thank Dylan for reaching out and seeing if I'd be interested in doing a video review. I never really do these things, as I was saying, so I kind of figured I would go ahead and, give it a shot. Should also thank Dylan because he's the first podcast, Horror Haven, that I ever was on. I got interviewed over there, and then I covered a handful of movies. And he is one of the podcasters that I kind of decided that I wanted to give this a try. So for this one, then, he had gave me kind of carte blanche about anything to record. So I was kind of thinking, I wanted something that I had never seen before. I also wanted a movie that is not necessarily too obscure, but not everybody has seen it. And so what I ended up deciding on is something that I actually have a bootleg copy of because it's not been released on Blu-ray as of yet. I was actually looking it up. It does look like there was a VHS and then a Laserdisc, but it sounds like our director, Michael Mann, as well as I believe Paramount, didn't necessarily want to release this. I do believe it's on DVD now. But the movie I'm going to be covering, of course, is going to be The Keep. So here's, my copy of it. And this one is from 1983. Of course, as I was saying, this is directed and written by Michael Mann, and it's come from the novel that was written by F. Paul Wilson. I'll actually get back to another fun fact for that one, but this stars Scott Glenn, Ian McClellan, and Alberta Watson. This also features like Gabriel Byrne, Jurgen Prochnow, Robert Prosky, and just some other people as well. But this is a drama fantasy horror film that is from the United Kingdom, and currently sitting on not a very good rating here at 5.7. And the synopsis: Nazis are forced to turn a Jewish historian for help in battling the ancient demon they have inadvertently freed from its prison. So, my history with this movie. I actually had first heard about this from an ex-girlfriend's dad. He really liked this movie. He didn't know much about it that he was kind of relaying to me. It was this movie and Hellraiser is the two that he asked me about. I had actually seen that movie and all of the sequels that were released up to that point. So, but this one also appears in the Horror Show Guide Ultimate Fright Fest of movies that I've been kind of working through as one of the things. I also have like a Fangoria Top 300 horror movie issue as well. But then a little bit of how time is a flat circle. I have recently just started reading Paperbacks from Hell. And in the chapter that I read the day after watching this movie, they had talked about this one and about how F. Paul Wilson, who wrote the novel, isn't a big fan of this movie as he felt like Michael Mann left out a good bit of information that would have made the movie better. I actually want to go back and see if I can find this source material just to kind of see if there is anything that might have been missed out on, because I do feel like there's some good things about this one, but there's also a lot that's kind of fallen short here with, this one being a good movie. I do kind of feel bad saying that because I don't necessarily like to trash movies, but that's just what it kind of feels like, is that there's some stuff here, but there's also a lot lacking, and I think it kind of makes it where it's hard to follow at times because of that. So then to get into this movie a little bit more, I love the idea of this one that we have here. This one is taking place in 1941 as we have Nazis who are moving across Romania. And what they actually do here is they come to a pass in the Carpathian Alps where there is this keep that is in this small Romanian village. This unit that is coming here is Vorman, who is portrayed by Prochnow. Now, they are setting up in this keep, and there's like these crosses that are made of nickel. Now, his men think they're silver, so they're trying to remove it, but the caretaker kind of scolds them for it and tells them not to do that. So what ends up happening, though, is something gets awoken inside this keep, and that brings Glaken, who is portrayed by Scott Glenn. He wakes up with glowing eyes, and he makes his way back to this village. Now, some of these Nazi soldiers are killed, and this brings Cayman Pfeffer, who is portrayed by Byrne. Now, he is, I should say here, Vorman doesn't really believe in the Nazi cause anymore. Now, this other guy portrayed by Byrne does. So he actually starts killing people that are in this village because he wants to know who is behind everything. And this upsets Father Fanoscu, who is portrayed by Prosky. Now, I know him. I believe he might have been like Grandpa Munster or something. I should have looked this up ahead of time. But I know him from being the grandpa, I believe, in Gremlins 2. I'm actually going to double check that while I'm sitting right here with you guys. But he was somebody who, he has a smaller role in this one. He actually gets him turned on to Ian McClellan, who is the Jewish historian who knows a lot about this. Actually, now I'm looking at it, Prosky is also in Mrs. Doubtfire. I actually realized I was getting him mixed up, and I think it's because I have like Mandela effect where he was Grandpa Fred in Gremlins 2, so that's what I was kind of getting at, where I was kind of getting those mixed up there. But then, as I was saying, Dr. Theodore Kuza, who is McClellan, he ends up getting called in here to help to figure out what's going on here. Now, we have this entity inside of the keep starts killing other soldiers and everything like that, and he actually wants to be released, so he enlists the aid of Dr. Kuza, who might be a little bit misguided here, and that's what Glaken tries to tell him as we kind of go on here. So what I was going to say, great setting, time period. We have Nazis. We actually have some of them being good characters and some of them being villains, so it makes it easier when this entity is killing people because, I mean, Nazis are easy to hate, so that's a good person to have when you want to have a bunch of people get killed off where you're not necessarily against the monster here. Now, some of the lore here is that I picked up on while watching this. This is definitely borrowing from the Jewish mythology of the Golem, as this is supposed to be a protector of the people. But this also becomes kind of like Pumpkinhead type idea here, where be careful what you wish for, because when you unleash this, you can't necessarily stop it, which becomes a problem. I do think, though, that There is some lore that isn't as explored. I did hear that the original cut of this was like 3.5 hours, so that might have helped if you had a little bit more of that not cut out. This already runs an hour and a half, and it's kind of messy, as I got a little bit bored because it just kind of cuts. There's some abrupt stuff that happens, and then we jump to the next scene. You need a little bit more to flesh that out for it to flow just a little bit better. I mean, I think there's probably a happy medium between what we have here and that director's cut where you're not going on too long. So this is one, though, that I don't necessarily know if I can recommend to everybody. We get some good practical effects. Some of it looks cheesy. I'm a fan when you have some of this type of stuff here and it looks good. It's just not necessarily all of it works. But, I mean, I also, like, it sounds like there wasn't the greatest budget here to work with. Like, it wasn't the largest that they were working with. So, the first time we see this creature, it's covered in smoke. But it also seems like the more he sucks in souls, the more his body gets defined. And the more, so, I mean, it almost seems like the Mummy could have borrowed some, like the one from '99, where as it's kind of eating things, that it'll actually kind of restore itself to being a better thing. So I would say if you're into more of these like obscure '80s movies, this one would be kind of a hidden gem to check out. Notice how I go to a gem. I think this is more of one that is kind of like a missing film that if you're trying to round out some of the deeper cuts, this is one there. I still enjoyed my time with this one. It's not great. It's not horrible. Kind of a middling movie that, I mean, the cast alone, just having some of the people that I named is worth it for that. Like, I also want to, reading the source material might also help me for more of appreciation for this movie as well. Don't necessarily think there's anything else. I don't want to go into spoilers or anything like that. So my rating here is going to be a 6 out of 10. So take what you will there. I don't necessarily think I'm the most harshest rating. I do kind of look at some of the technical stuff as well as some of enjoyment that you have with it as well. But I would say if what I said here sounds good, don't sleep on this one. So I do believe I read somewhere that it was in kind of development hell. That does have some issues with trying to find the DVD. I think it might be out of print. I know that Michael Mann really is pushing to not have this one released. And, I mean, he's had some, bangers that are out there. I know he did, like, Manhunter with Brian Cox as Hannibal Lecter. So, yeah, not the greatest movie out there. Definitely worth the watch, though. And it does look like you can stream this on Prime, so it's not completely buried as well. So, that's all I have to say about this movie. As I said, kind of already said where I would fall with that there, but this is David Garrett Jr., and I am signing off.
Hello?
I'm over here stroking my dick. I got lotion on my dick right now. I'm just stroking my shit. I'm horny as fuck, man. I'm a freak, man.
Hey, what's up? This is Steve here from Dead With My Friends podcast, and you are watching Horrifying Tales of Horror. And I'm here to talk about 3 movies out of my personal collection that take place during the Gritty City. That's right, I'm talking New York City, and during a time when the city was truly at its grittiest. We're talking the early 80s. So starting with the first movie, we've got Blue Underground's release of Maniac, starring the late great Joe Spinell. This one is a certified classic. It's a fucking disturbing movie. Let me read the back of the box so we can get more into this. Frank Zito is a deeply disturbed man haunted by the traumas of unspeakable childhood abuse. And when these horrific memories begin to scream inside his mind, Frank prowls the seedy streets of New York City to stalk and slaughter innocent young women. Now, Frank has begun a relationship with a beautiful photographer played by Carolyn Monroe, yet his vile compulsions remain. These are the atrocities of a human monster. This is the story of Maniac, directed by William Lustig of Maniac Cop 2, Vigilante, and featuring the landmark gore effects by Tom Savini of Dawn of the Dead and Friday the 13th. This relentlessly shocking and disturbing film was originally banned and censored all over the world due to its graphic violence. Now, yeah. So, Maniac. This one does not hold back. You've got this depraved man who is out there stalking and slaughtering women of the night, and like on the cover here, this nice lenticular fucking Blue Underground slip here, he's scalping these women and putting their, well, scalps onto mannequins and talking to them. Like it said on the back of the box, censored and banned in multiple countries and all over the United States, Maniac seriously captures that true grit, early 80s New York feel, with a head explosion, again effects done by the amazing Tom Savini. This one will leave you satisfied for all you gorehounds out there, and an ending that will also leave you thinking, what the fuck just happened? Maniac, 1980, check it out. Up next out of the collection, we are talking about none other than Maestro Lucio Fulci's The New York Ripper. Also a release from Blue Underground. Love these lenticular slips. Fun thing, A-Bomb Press, who does a lot of comics for Fulci films, they did a crossover with Maniac and The New York Ripper, where they put the two killers in each film against each other. I've still yet to read it, but, you know, one of these days I'll get around to it. But let's talk The New York Ripper. Alright, so, reading the back of the box. Someone is taking a big bite out of the Big Apple. Great fucking tagline. Any other on here? No, not quite. But that tagline is sick. Anyways. A blade-wielding psychopath is on the loose, turning the Big Apple bright red with the blood of beautiful young women, as an NYPD detective, Fred Williams, follows the trail of the butchery from the decks of the Staten Island Ferry to the sex shows of Times Square. Each brutal murder becomes a sadistic taunt. In the city that never sleeps, the hunt is on for the killer that can't be stopped. Co-written and directed by the acclaimed horror maestro, Lucio Fulci of Zombie, City of the Living Dead, The Beyond. If you're an Italian horror movie fan, you know plenty of Fulci. And filmed on location in the mean streets of New York City. This is one of Fulci's most savage and controversial thrillers. Which, yeah, another real mean-spirited one. The killer, like I said, targeting women of the night, beautiful women. He quacks like a duck. There is impalements in certain areas. Razor blade to the eye because it's Fulci and eye gore just go hand in hand. Another one where just kind of the ending leaves you like, what the fuck? It's a real dark one. Probably one of Fulci's most mean-spirited films. My all-time favorite Fulci film. And again, it just captures that gritty early 80s New York City where, like, the sex shops down 42nd Street, the grindhouse theaters, all that good shit, tops with ton of Fulci gore. You just can't go wrong. A little Giallo-esque, but in the most mean-spirited of ways. Definitely check this one out. Another great Blue Underground release. Alright, last but not least, the third film I've picked out of my collection is Arrow Video's release of Frank Henenlotter's Basket Case. What's in the basket? Everyone wants to know. Basket Case is an ultimate cult classic from the early 80s, set, of course, in the gritty city. This is like a creature feature, body horror, tons of blood. Let's read the back of the box. So, the feature debut of director Frank Henenlotter of Brain Damage and Frankenhooker, 1982's Basket Case is a righteous and blood-splattered midnight movie experience, now immortalized in a lavish new 4K restoration. Alright, so, a little about the plot. Dwayne Bradley seems like a pretty ordinary guy. His formerly conjoined twin Belial, on the other hand, is a deformed creature who lives in a wicker basket. Arriving in the Big Apple and taking up a room at a seedy hotel, which, if you know Frank Henenlotter, a lot of his movies circle around this hotel that's in this movie here. The pair set about hunting down and butchering the surgeons responsible for their separation. Filmed on a shoestring budget against the backdrop of 1980s New York, where it played on the midnight movie circuit for over 2.5 years, Basket Case has clawed its way from its humble origins to become one of the most celebrated cult movies. Yeah, so if you like cult creature feature films from the early 80s, specifically in the Gritty City, Basket Case is a must-watch. There's this crazy stop-motion animation effect where Belial is having a total fucking meltdown because his brother is out on a date trying to live a normal life while he's stuck in this seedy apartment room, chilling in his basket, and it's just madness. Everyone needs to see Basket Case. And Basket Case 2 and 3, and a majority of Frank Henenlotter's movies, because they're all fun. A lot of them take place in the city, and they're just fucking crazy. This film doesn't hold out on blood. It's a fucking great one. With all that being said, I hope you enjoyed these 3 picks out of my personal collection that are set in the Gritty City, NYC, from the early 80s. Again, I'm Steve from Dead With My Friends podcast, and you've been watching Horrifying Tales of Horror. See you in the next dimension.
You forgot the first rule of remakes, Jill. Don't fuck with the original.
All right, but before we get into like talking about the show, did you hear the news with 28 years later
That Cillian Murphy is going to be returning?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that it's a trilogy. Nia DaCosta is already set to direct the sequel, and nobody's been picked for the 3rd film yet, but that will be the final film of the trilogy. But it's a 28 years later trilogy, and
really? So they're making 3 new movies?
3 new movies.
Oh shit!
And the wording on iHorror was that Cillian Murphy will be part of the 1st film. So take of that information what you will.
I wonder what's up with the whole trilogy thing. I feel like that's the new big thing. Like they did the Halloween new one, and then they announced The Exorcist, and then The Strangers they're remaking, and they're gonna do a trilogy, and now this they're doing a trilogy.
I actually just watched The Strangers Chapter 1. Oh, it's so fucking underwhelming. Like it's already been done. It's legitimately like, and the director, it's Rennie Harlan, right?
The girl who starred in it was the one.
No, the director is Rennie Harlan.
I don't know. I thought the girl who starred in it was, or she might have been the producer.
Anyway, the director, and I'm almost certain it was Rennie Harlan. It's the director of Nightmare on Elm Street 4, and fucking
okay.
He did, I think, Prison. But anyway, he had said that this wasn't going to be a remake. It was pretty much a fucking remake.
Yeah, from the trailer, it looked like a remake. Like some of the lines were the same. Like some of the stuff that happened was the same. And I don't know if it's just that the movie's too recent to be remade, or if it's just not. I feel like it's not a movie that has to be remade. You know,
what year was The Strangers released? I mean,
it was 2008. I want to say.
I mean, and like to us, that doesn't seem like a long time.
Yeah,
but you know, my son was born in 2008, and he's now an obnoxious teenager. You know what I'm saying? Like it's you know, that's one of the things that happens when you get old. And so there's this whole wave of audience that is just now at the age where their films are being remade, and they're like, what the fuck is this bullshit? And us fucking old heads are sitting over here like, hi, how you doing? Sucks, don't it?
I feel like yeah. I feel like there's certain movies where, and I guess this will kind of like segue into the whole conversation, is there's certain movies that I feel benefit from an update, and there's ones that are widely regarded as a better version than the original. And then there's ones that you watch it and you're like, I can't picture anything that they could do that's going to improve this. And I feel like The Strangers is one of those movies for me where like I watch it and I'm like, I can't picture anything that they could do differently that I'm going to be like, this is way better than the original, like by far. And I feel like it's the same way with like the classics. So Nightmare on Elm Street, when they announced that, I'm like, they're not going to be able to top the original. So why do it, you know?
and so here's the thing about the Nightmare on Elm Street remake, because to me the Nightmare on Elm Street remake had potential to be a good movie if it wasn't a Nightmare on Elm Street remake. If it was just Nightmare on Elm Street Part 8, you know what I'm saying? And just it's now just Jackie Earle Haley as Freddy Krueger, and then you don't get bogged down by having to tell the story again. You can delve into his backstory without tying the children of the film with the children from the beginning. Like that's not necessary. It was an unnecessary deviation, and it just felt so fucking shoehorned, and it was done by a guy who I feel was just not a very good fucking filmmaker. Like he's a music video director, and there's nothing wrong with music videos. Some music videos are tremendous. The director of Pet Sematary and Pet Sematary 2 directed Like a Prayer and the Janet Jackson video Nasty. So David Fincher started off as a music video director. He did
the director for Dragula did Halloween 2, and that's amazing.
Halloween 2 is such a good fucking horror remake, isn't it? It's so much better than the original Halloween 2.
I feel like the best way, and talking to Sierra about it before, like years ago, is I feel the best way to remake a movie is to remake a movie that's not anybody's favorite movie. Like, when they announced the Pet Sematary remake, which honestly I wasn't a fan of it, but when they did, Sierra was like, that's a good movie to remake, because Pet Sematary is not a ton of people's favorite movie of all time. So like not a lot of people are going to be mad about it. But if you take a classic movie like the greats, like Nightmare on Elm Street, Halloween, I don't want to say Friday the 13th because I kind of like the Friday the 13th remake. But
Friday the 13th remake is great.
Yeah. And Texas Chainsaw Massacre is great. I guess it just depends on how it's done.
It's all about the approach. And that's the thing, is there's like with you look at those two movies because they're both Platinum Dunes, correct?
Yep. Yes.
Nightmare on Elm Street and Friday the 13th were both Platinum Dunes fucking productions. So was Texas Chainsaw Massacre. All right, so you look at the approach of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It's nothing like the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah.
It's inherently its own vision by a director with vision, Marcus Nispel, I believe, and it's just stylized, and it has a texture and a life all its own, and it doesn't need to be compared to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. The only reason that it's even a remake, again, this could have easily just been a sequel. They didn't need to add the remake element to it. They could have just had this exist within that same time period, and nobody needs to actually that's if you're gonna set it in the 70s anyway, it should just exist within the universe of the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and then you just have it as another story, and then nobody has any reason to bitch about it being a Texas Chainsaw Massacre sequel, because if anything, then it's a fucking great Texas Chainsaw Massacre sequel. It's just, sometimes I feel like they so for like Evil Dead, the Evil Dead remake, it's not a remake.
It's a sequel. Yeah.
It's a sequel. But everybody looks at it as a remake.
Yeah, which is funny because we had posted on TikTok, which we're gonna play some TikTok videos from people who had submitted. But I feel like the number one response when we had asked for favorite horror remakes was the Evil Dead movie, and it's not. Yeah, it's not a remake.
It's not a remake.
It takes enough influence and like things that the original did, but it makes it its own thing at the same time.
And it's a lived-in world, which is the thing that people seem to negate when they watch the movie. They see the movie, they see the beats that it hits, and it feels like a remake, but it's not at all. Like it's two totally different stories. And you know, I have my problems with the 2013 Evil Dead, but I also have my problems with Evil Dead Rise, and I have my problems with Evil Dead 2. And I have my problems with Army of Darkness, though Army of Darkness fucking rules. But, you know, like when people see it as a remake, there's this instant fucking fight that they have with the film. They're like, fuck this thing. This thing isn't my thing, so it's not a good thing. Fuck this thing. Fucking thing. Who wants this fucking thing? And then it comes out and everybody's like, yo, this thing is fucking sick. The fuck you and that thing. And that is the horror fan, because they're more
that's any fandom.
They're more inclined to have their nostalgia than have something new. And so when you call something a remake, it automatically makes it say to a certain demographic that we are taking away the thing that you love. We're undoing the thing that you love, and they're not undoing it because they do still exist. And that's an argument that you'll hear from a large contingent of horror fans is, you know, these movies still exist. But then there comes the discussions where it's, this movie's better than this movie. You know, the remake's better than the original. And, you know, it's funny.
I feel like one that fell into with me, like I fell into that category with the new Child's Play. They announced it, they showed the trailers. I was like, this is going to be awful. It's going to be terrible. And I watched it, and I wasn't a fan of it. I love the old Child's Play movies. I wasn't a fan of it, but I watched the videos and I've like listened to podcasts and stuff where people will rank all the Child's Play movies, and they will rank the remake. They'll say, I'm not a fan of it, I don't like it, but they'll rank it above Seed of Chucky or Child's Play 3, or, you know, it's not, they're like, it's not great, but it's better than these.
It's a good movie. And so that actually brings up a really interesting point that I constantly talk about when it comes to these remakes, and it is the reason that remakes are made. So the reason that remakes are made is because these films have a certain cachet with their name alone. Now, the marketing of films is very expensive. It's one of the most expensive portions of making a film is the rollout and marketing of the film. These trailers that give every fucking thing away, and, you know, just pumping it out there so where it's just like inundating your streams or your television screens or wherever you're looking at something, it's there. And that isn't cheap. It's a machine that they put behind a film, and they're looking for a return. And more often than not, that return has not been met. So in an act of desperation, we go back to the well on things that made money before, and we use that IP to continue to make more money, because there is a built-in audience for that. And that built-in audience now probably has children. So they're going to take their children to that thing that they loved, and then that's double the monies. You look at Star Wars, you look at Indiana Jones, you look at fucking the Marvel Cinematic Universe. How many fucking Spider-Mans have we had? You know, like, So this isn't just a horror thing. This is a across the board thing that studios are definitely doing, but there's the argument of, if you're a fan of something and you love to see that thing on screen, why wouldn't you want to see that thing?
Yeah. I think that there are studios that do take advantage of it, though. Like Blumhouse. Perfect
we can talk
example.
about the My Bloody Valentine remake.
Yeah, that just got announced at the time of recording this. I mean, they're the ones that just did a couple years ago Black Christmas, right? And it had absolutely nothing to do with Black Christmas, but they took the name and they put it out, and here's a Black Christmas remake
behind Halloween.
Yeah,
the Halloween trilogy and the Exorcist trilogy. That so we're probably gonna actually get a My Bloody Valentine trilogy, which, if you think about it, is really exciting because we've never got the continuing story of Harry Warden in any of these fucking movies. We had a remake in 2009, but again, they did the same thing where they left it kind of open-ended, where you could have more, but you didn't get more. And they did it in 1981, they did it in 2009, but here in 2024, we could actually get a continuing story of Harry Warden, and we could get a fucking violent horror film. The reason I say that is because things like Terrifier becoming a large property because of its violence in a violent nature is being touted because of its violence. People are talking about throwing up in the theaters, and that is only going to be a good thing for My Bloody Valentine. Yes, it's from Blumhouse. That's understandable, but it has the instant cachet of being a gore film. It's a slasher film. It's not going to be imaginary or fucking Night Swim. It is going to be more on the line of Halloween Kills. And getting that in a mine, I'm fucking all for, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. But I think that's a good example, though, of what I had said before is I've never talked to anybody that said My Bloody Valentine is their favorite horror movie.
It's a good one.
It's a good one, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I even liked the 2009 remake of it, but again, it's not anybody's favorite, so it's the perfect movie to remake. Are there any horror remakes? And it's kind of a rhetorical question because I'm sure I know the answer, but I guess a better one would be, what horror remakes do you think have been done that have been better or improved on the originals?
So I mean, there's obvious ones to me. You know, The Thing jumps right out there.
Yep.
You know, it's not a remake of The Thing from Another World. It's an adaptation of Who Goes There. But it's still a remake. In the eyes of the audience, it's a remake. And in terms of a remake, it's a good remake. Then obviously The Blob. Blob is a fucking vast improvement on the original. Like, you look at the special effects in The Blob, the Kevin Dillon version versus the fucking, was it Steve McQueen? Is it Steve McQueen in the original Blob?
Yeah.
Like, it's black and white, and it's good for its time, but
I think maybe that's a big thing with more modern remakes too, is that, you know, we have these movies that we bring up, like The Thing, The Blob, The Fly is another one, and it's leaps and bounds from where it was when the original one came out. So the things that we can do as far as what they can show on screen, as far as pushing the boundaries, and also where they've come as far as like filming techniques and special effects, where remaking movies now, it almost feels cheaper because of CGI and stuff like that. So you're not,
because they're not using special makeup effects anymore. It's cheaper to use CGI, and it ages poorly. And
I feel like
films don't last.
I feel like remakes that are done with respect and love for the original versus remakes that are done as cash grabs with quick CGI and slap a name on it. I think that's where you get the differentiating factor of a good remake and a bad remake.
So, good versus bad remake. What are your thoughts on Rob Zombie's Halloweens?
The second one's awful. I do not like the second one.
Why not?
The first, why not?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't have a reason, I guess. I just, watching it, I'm not a fan of it. I think it's too far out there.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it could have been its own movie that wasn't Halloween. It could have just been a slasher.
So I've been talking about this movie recently, just on lives and shit. And one of the things that I talked about, in lives, is that if you think about it, John Carpenter's idea for Halloween, initially, he wanted it to be an anthology.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you think about it, it kind of is. Because it has its own varying timelines. There are multiple fractured timelines that exist simultaneously with each other. So we've got the Halloween Halloween trilogy right over here. We've got the Rob Zombies right here. We've got 1, 2, 4, 5, 6 right here. We've got 1, 2, 7, 8 right here. You get what I'm saying? Like,
yeah,
there's all of these differing worlds and universes where the rules are sort of the same, but they always also kind of vary and veer into different directions. So like in one universe, Michael Myers is a giant Goliath that's just, like he roars and shit, you know what I'm saying? And Dr. Loomis is the fucking worst. And, so like there's that universe. And I don't particularly like that universe personally. Just from a storytelling standpoint, I'm not like a huge fan of it. But looking at it as an anthology and realizing, and again, all the way over here, it's just Halloween 3 on its own, where Halloween is a commercial on the TV in its universe. And so it is multiversal, which is a thing that is very popular right now. But if you think about it, that's what it is. And so then in essence, it is an anthology.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me is that it just feels, the whole thing feels unnecessary, which I guess you could argue for a lot of remakes and sequels and stuff. But like, I don't need to know why Michael Myers is evil. I don't need to see his stripper mom cursing at him and getting beat by her fucking, like, I don't need to see that,
No, I'm not disagreeing.
So I don't know. For me, things that stand out as far as remakes that I feel are better than the original are ones that kind of take the original and ramp it up. So the first thing that comes to mind for me is The Hills Have Eyes.
Fuck yes.
I like the original Hills Have Eyes, but watching it now, I feel like it drags a little bit.
I mean, because you've seen the fucking Alexandre Aja's.
Exactly, yeah. And so you get this whole, like, for me, the best part of the remake, jumping into spoiler territories, obviously, is like the end of the movie where the guy's going and getting revenge and he finds this old town and he's just fucking everybody up.
Yeah.
And you don't even get that at all.
Like, no, you get a fucking Home Alone trap.
Yeah.
Which is a setup for Nightmare on Elm Street, if you really look at it.
Yeah.
Like, because which came first, Hills Have Eyes or Nightmare on Elm Street? I think it was
Hills Have Eyes.
Yeah,
I believe. Yeah.
And so the booby traps started there, but they also were in fucking Last House on the Left. Wes Craven liked booby traps.
He did, yeah.
That's weird, right?
Yeah. I think Last House on the Left too. I don't know that I'd say that the remake is better than the original, but I think that that's on par with the original, and I think it did enough where having the daughter survive added a really cool element to it, where it's a similar enough movie, but it's not cut for cut the exact same movie. Like,
but I feel like the daughter. I understand that the actions that they did to her is enough to merit the reaction that they have, because it is essentially a rape revenge film.
Yeah.
But the death of the daughter is what solidified their actions. You get what I mean? Like, because like I just, for me, that piece needed to be there, but it's already mean spirited, and like, but that's the thing, is that's another thing about remakes, is that the films that were made in a period of time that they're in when the films are remade aren't the same. So we as a race, as a human society, look at the world differently than we did in 72. And so rightfully, things that are fucking awful aren't as accepted. And I personally have a problem with that, though, because I'm again strictly anti-censorship, and I feel like not saying it doesn't make it real. And not going to these places doesn't mean that these places aren't gone to. Not talking about the problem isn't making the problem disappear. And
I think a lot of you saying that makes me think a lot of the original Godzilla, when they brought it over here to America, and they had Godzilla King of the Monsters, and they added an American protagonist, and they kind of like tried to take away that, hey, this whole movie is about what we did to Japan.
Which in essence is kind of the start of these Americanized remakes of Japanese films, with things like The Ring,
Ringu,
The Grudge, and what was the other one, the Joshua Jackson one, with the photography,
Shutter.
Like, all of these were fucking remakes of Japanese films, and it's because American audiences don't want to watch things with subtitles. Like, the mass populace is of the belief that they don't want to see something that they have to read, and so they make these American remakes like Let Me In, and they're apparently remaking Train to Busan.
I saw that.
But they're also talking about remaking Where Evil Lurks and Terrified.
Really? I didn't hear that.
Films, and they tried to get him to do them, and he was like, "No, fuck that! I ain't doing it."
I think
you guys are gonna fucking cut my balls off. Like, why the fuck do I want to make a movie where my balls are cut off when I can just make my movies?
I don't think that I'm anti subtitles, but I feel like it's harder for me to get into horror movies that have subtitles, because I feel like having to read the dialogue takes away from like immersing myself into what's going on. So if it's something atmospheric like The Ring or The Grudge, which I have not watched Ringu, I've not watched Ju-on, so can't really speak too much, but I enjoyed The Ring because the atmosphere is just creepy, and I feel like if you take that atmosphere and I have to like stop watching what I'm seeing on the screen to like read what they're saying, it's going to take me out of it a little bit
and
more.
See, I'm the opposite. I feel like it forces me to immerse myself and not take my attention away from the screen.
I guess that's a good point too.
We have lots of shit going on around us, and we don't lock in on something. But when you're watching a foreign film, you have to lock in. And so there's a whole audience of people that will give a pass for kind of mid to mediocre films if they have subtitles, because they're able to interpret it in a way that they wouldn't had that same film been in English. And so there's that as well. And so I think that so there's different kinds of remakes, because The Ring, The Grudge, those are remakes. Let Me In, the remake. Shutter is a remake. There's all kinds of different remakes. It's not just remaking things that are beloved, but the association with remakes is, oh, they're taking the thing that I love. So like, here's a film that I want to ask you about. if
Okay.
it would work as a remake, and that is Sleepaway Camp. Would
I don't
Sleepaway
think
Camp work in 2024?
I don't think that it would.
And why not?
I think the reveal is too known.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That is exactly the point. There are certain films that once the genie's out of the bottle, you
Mhm.
can't put it fucking back in.
I mean,
So
a good
there's
example of that is look at the 90s version of Psycho.
a better example of that is this remake that they're working on for the Blair Witch Project.
But yeah.
Like, if you think about it,
What made that movie big was the marketing, right? And
well, it's the belief that what you were watching was potentially real.
Yeah.
And that's what the marketing was. And
Mhm.
it was done very much like how Cannibal Holocaust was done before it, where these people went into hiding. And there was this question of whether or not these people actually died. And, obviously, when the reality of it all came to light, then there were people who were like, yo, I'm really excited that I got fricked like that. There's certain people like me that watched it and were like, this is fucking boring. I'm so fucking bored right now.
Well, the marketing was great with it because they did. I talked about this recently. Like, they had a documentary air on the History Channel that talked about, like, as if it was real. Like, this is what happened in Burkittsville, and it really amped up like what you're watching is real. A similar thing happened to me. I thought it was funny and I thought it was dumb, but when Paranormal Activity came out and everybody was going on like, that's real, it's real, it's real. I'm like, it's absolutely not real. How can you say that that's real?
Yeah.
And
once it's done once, you can't do it again.
Yeah.
And there's certain things you just can't do that. And that's to me the biggest example.
Yeah.
Because
I think that if you change it up a bit, I don't think Sleepaway Camp could be changed up enough to where it would be a remake. But like things like My Bloody Valentine, where they switched up who the killer was in the 2009 version versus the 1981 version.
Yeah.
That was good because the whole movie you're expecting it to be one person and then it turns out it's somebody else.
Yeah.
So, but you can't do that with Sleepaway Camp. You can't say, oh, just kidding, Angela's not the killer. Like, that's what Sleepaway Camp is,
Yeah. And it's ultimately about that story.
Yeah.
And I think that story, with everything that's done in that movie, works at the time that it was released. Like, I feel like had it never been released and they were to make something like that now, it would be fucking a praised film.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it would be incredibly brave and
A24 art house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, it would be a huge fucking film. But people, they don't understand it very well, and I feel like it's got a really blurred vision when it comes to that film. So I think that one's way too problematic to be remade. Is there any other horror movies that haven't been remade that you think should be remade? I have a really good one.
Let me hear yours. I feel like I've thought about this before and I've had answers, but thinking of it on the spot,
So I would say Fortress from 1985, and
I haven't seen it.
It's an Australian film that was purchased by HBO, and it's about this school teacher and her class. They get kidnapped by this group of criminals, and they have to try to escape and survive, and it goes places that are really fucking interesting, and you should absolutely go out of your way to see it. It is available on YouTube. So if you have not seen Fortress, I'm not going to give anything away, but I think it's a fucking fantastic fucking film, and it's harrowing, and it could be atmospheric and big, or it can be a small indie film, and it would work either fucking way. Like, this movie's heavy. So yeah, I would remake that in a fucking heartbeat. Have you thought of it?
I think I mean, there's a few like movies that I love that I'd like to like. I'd be interested in seeing other people's interpretations of them. So like Carnival of Souls, I think you
That
could
would
do
be
something
good.
really, really interesting with that. Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things. I feel like you could make a real fun movie with
Yeah.
that, because
That's such a bad movie to begin with.
I love that movie. But I think like what makes that movie fun is how much it makes you hate the characters.
Yeah.
And I feel like you could do some fun stuff with hating characters with like a modern take on it. But I don't know. Yeah, I feel like there's ones that I've said before that I'm like I would love, and I'm sure as soon as we get off of here I'm gonna think of something. But one thing that I do want to ask you before we jump over to submissions that people had brought in from TikTok is the whole remake versus requel, the current requel trend.
Mm-hmm.
Would you prefer seeing a remake, or would you prefer seeing a continuation of a story?
So
now,
I like the idea of it being a sequel. I don't like requel. Like, just make it a sequel or don't make it.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't make sense, don't do it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think that muddying up the timelines just to fucking pay fan service is lazy writing, honestly. Yeah. And I think there are ways that you could tell a story without having to rely on old names. Mm-hmm. And that said, with all due fucking respect for these people that are getting a paycheck, like, more power to you. But me as an audience member, I would much rather see a coherent sequel,
like
something
Evil
that
Dead 2013,
something that exists in the world,
yeah,
and it works and it can be its own thing. And I think that that's the way that you utilize IP. Personal opinion.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I think that if you're gonna make it a sequel, make it a sequel. If you're gonna make a remake, make it a remake. I don't see a point in doing both. And you see it even outside of horror. So things like Star Wars, for example, like the biggest complaint that The Force Awakens gets is that it's too similar to A New Hope.
Yeah.
And then you have The Last Jedi, which tried to be its own thing, and everybody complained that it's completely different. It's nothing like Star Wars. So you have to put a clear thing. If you're going to remake Star Wars, remake Star Wars. If you're going to do a sequel to Star Wars, do a sequel to Star Wars. Don't say you're doing one thing. Don't start out as one thing and do another. Like, commit to one thing and do that. Is my opinion.
Those should have committed to being just sequels to the Star Wars films.
Yeah.
But they got too cute for their own good.
Yeah.
And they played nostalgia way too hard, and it backfired. Because there are people that hang on to their nostalgia like a fucking security blanket.
Yeah.
But it's now time for us to hear you guys cling to your security blankets, because we asked you, the world of TikTok, what are some films that you feel are better than the originals? Take it away, guys.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2003, there's no changing my mind on that one. The Fly from the 80s, The Blob from the 80s, Hills Have Eyes 1 and 2, and I'm gonna say The Crazies.
Hey, horror movie people. For some reason, it would not let me properly stitch Chunky Larry's question. So I'm gonna put him. I'm gonna tag him in my comments just to know you should follow this dude. He's fucking awesome. I've known him for years on here, so we're TikTok friends, and I love it. But his question was, "What's your favorite horror remake?" And if people know me very well, and they if you do know me really well, I hands down will always say Dawn of the Dead, the 2006. I love the original, don't get me wrong, but the remake was so fucking good. I really enjoyed it. It had a great cast, great follow. It was amazing to me. And it was a good update for that movie. So please let me know what your favorite remakes are of original horror movies, and follow Chunky Larry. Have a wonderful night.
Hello, my name is Sylvester Barzy. I am a horror and fantasy author, and Dylan asked me to I guess, share a true crime story with you guys. Dylan is awesome. Known him from his first podcast, so Horror Haven. So, have you ever heard of Jack the Ripper? Everyone's heard of Jack the Ripper. But there have been other Rippers throughout history. So I lived in Georgia, and in Georgia we had our own Ripper known as the Atlanta Ripper. Right now I'm working on a book that kind of has some things about the Atlanta Ripper in it. So I have a chapter that speaks on it. So that's what I'm pretty much going to read to you. So the Atlanta Ripper was a serial killer in Atlanta, Georgia from 1909 to 1914. At least those are his string of murders that have been connected to him. And still unsolved. They never caught him. They had a suspect, but this Ripper case is tied up in racial biases and a lot of things, so it's just hard to believe what the police did at the time. But here we go. Emma Lou is a very important name in the history of the Atlanta Ripper because Emma is the only woman to have faced the Ripper and lived to tell about it. Saturday afternoon, Emma's mother, 40-year-old Lena Straight, told Emma she would be out at the market getting items for dinner that night. Emma about her day doing her chores, cleaning the house and helping the neighbors' kids. Emma and her mother felt sorry for their neighbors, the Watts, because just a week prior, Addie Watts, wife and mother, was murdered. Emma didn't have all the facts, but she knew through the whispers on the streets and from Mr. Watts's drunk tear-filled nights that Addie's throat was slit from left to right after someone caved in her skull with a brick and left her on the street to bleed out and to be discovered early Sunday morning as the city got ready for church. Addie was the 20th woman to be attacked in Atlanta in the space of 2 years, but she would not be the last. After the Watts attack, the paper finally took these murders seriously, or maybe they saw how much money could be made writing about a serial killer. Whether righteous or selfish, on Monday morning, in big black print, our killer was given a name: the Atlanta Ripper. Fear of the Ripper kept most women in the area locked up tight at night. The police weren't talking about it, but the black community of Atlanta was, because the Ripper was attacking black and mixed servant women. Husbands were having their wives pack up their jobs. Women were doing all their errands during the day and leaving everything for the next day, the moment the sun started to set. This was a very scary time to be a black woman alone at night. But as Emma Lou sat at her family kitchen table, that's just what she was. Alone. Lena hadn't returned. And after going door to door in her neighborhood, Emma Lou learned no one had seen her mother for hours. There was a serial killer on the loose, attacking women just like Emma Lou's mama. So she did what any child would do. Emma Lou went looking for her mama in the dead Atlanta night. On her journey through the streets of the marketplace, a large black man in a three-piece suit and a black hat stepped out of the shadows. The man smiled at Emma and began a short conversation. "How are you feeling this evening?" Emma said she was fine. The short interaction scared Emma Lou so much, She picked up her pace as she tried to walk past the man. But just as she was about to clear him and be free of all that worry, the man said, "Don't be afraid. Never hurt girls like you." Then he drove a knife into Emma Lou's back and ran off, laughing through the night. Before Emma Lou, there had been no reports of what the Ripper looked like. He was just a monster that prowled the Atlanta streets collecting women. But as Emma Lou's screams filled the night, she had single-handedly changed the case and had given the police the first break they had in 2 years. The people of the city surrounded Emma Lou and helped her to her feet, rushing her to a nearby clinic. But only a few feet away from where they found Emma Lou, in a dark alley, Lena was bleeding to death. That night, the Ripper had claimed another victim and attacked twice. And Lena's monster was trying to make a legacy. You know, this is kind of fictionalized just to work with my story, but some of the key facts is the Atlanta Ripper was attacking black women, and the police didn't see this as a issue, and the papers didn't even report about it. I believe there's probably 10 victims before they even decided to write about the killings. And really the only thing that kind of pushed everything forward was the fact that black women stopped going to work, which impacted their white bosses who basically had no workers. So the fear was seeping into the economy, and that's what drove the police and people to actually start acting. Like I said, they had one suspect based off of, I think, Emma Lou's description and some other things, but he was never convicted of it. And during the time, I guess the police were under the impression that this wasn't a serial killer, and that it might have been husbands who were staging the murders of their wives to fit in with this profile. So they thought it was just multiple different unconnected murders. And there were some cases like that. There were some husbands who tried to ride on the back of the Ripper and, off their wives and stuff. But for the most part, the consensus is that the murders that are connected to Ripper are just of one person. There's a lot of theories about it. It's an interesting case. They call him the forgotten serial killer, or America's forgotten serial killer, because no one ever really talks about it. It's definitely a great case to look into. Hopefully one day they'll solve it. Most likely not, but we'll see. So that was the story of Atlanta's very own Ripper. All right, have a great day.
Hi guys, it's Jody, Mr. Moto from Shotgun Facelift.
This is John from Shotgun Facelift.
Yo, Damien from Shotgun Facelift.
This is Kurt Decamp, bass player from Shotgun Facelift.
So Suicide Eyes, it's an important song because we needed a song that sat in a certain sonic spectrum, because the name was kind of harsh for some people, being Shotgun Facelift, and we needed something that didn't pigeonhole us into a certain genre type. And I think it nailed that just right.
It is our first probably real collaboration with the whole band as it sits now. Our first stable as the new unit. It has many layers to the song. It is a very epic song, and it's really fun to play.
I didn't have a whole lot of ideas going into it. A lot of it I just played from the other guy's music and wherever that led me.
It's one of our first ballads, And I don't like to use that word, but I don't have any other word to describe that.
It was the first time as a lyricist that I decided to not have any lyrics done or written before we started the song. I wanted to make sure the song was totally done, and I gave myself over completely to the song to say what it was pulling forward in me and what I was feeling, and just completely channeling myself completely through the song. It was also interesting because in Facelift we like to do a lot of different things, and so we wanted to see if we could do a ballad primarily without clean vocals. And so we kind of had this cute little saying for it around the studio when we were kind of making it. We called it a salad, that it was a scream ballad. Just to see if it would work, you know what I mean? Because we wanted to have ballads in this band, but I don't do clean vocals, primarily not for metal. So without changing my voice, without being something that I'm not, without trying to be a singer that I'm just not, we wanted to still see if we could do a ballad and pull it off and really bring that emotional energy, and I think we did.
What does the song Suicide Eyes mean to me, and how does it correlate to me? I've had a couple friends that have decided to take their lives, and they've all basically had the same look in their eyes, the same suicide eyes, so to say. You know, it's a look inside somebody's life. It's from their perspective and what they're going through and what a lot of us go through on a daily basis. You know,
it is a song about the dreadful subject of suicide. It's resonated with a lot of people.
As far as the meaning of the song, to me it's just about not letting the demons get to you, those voices in your head that say that you're not worthy. And you win and strive against it to survive another day. And that's why I think it's important for our catalog.
Suicide Eyes is about two things primarily. It's about sexual assault and my struggles with gender dysphoria.
It also has another personal meaning to me because I had battled with these demons before. The idea of suicide and things that relate to that. I also have a tattoo that also says, in life, death is not an option, which is also an anti-suicide slogan.
Biggest thing I can take from it is check on your friends, make sure everyone's doing all right. But that's not all I have to say on that matter, but see you later.
Stay sad, dreamer, good dreamer, dreamer, late
All right, we fucking did it, you guys. We are another episode in the books. We are 2 down now, and so many more to go. I hope that you guys are enjoying this journey of horror, dumb, emphasis on dumb, and all of the things that we're trying to do over here at the Horrifying Tales of Horror, we do specifically for you. But there's been a lot of HTOH family members who helped us out through the course of this episode that we just want to give some special love and shouts out to. I want to start with David from Journey of the Cinephile, which feels like something you need to be put on a registry for. I want to thank him for his review of The Keep. I thought that was a hell of a review, and it gives me a reason to watch The Keep, which is a movie that's always been kind of in my backlog, but now it's kind of at the forefront of my brain. So it's like, oh, I guess I'm going to be watching The Keep very soon. I also want to thank Sylvester Barzee, who did the true crime segment this week. It was a fascinating story that I would not have heard otherwise. And again, I'm the least of the true crime. Like between me and Dylan, he's Mr. True Crime, I'm Mr. Freddy Krueger. So it's interesting to open up your eyes to a whole new world, as Aladdin might tell you. Speaking of eyes, I want to thank Suicide Eyes for providing a music video for us for this episode.
You fucking kidding? Hey, so I'm editing the episode, and in the outro, you called the band Shotgun Facelift Suicide Eyes.
Did I?
Yeah.
Is that wrong?
The band is called Shotgun Facelift. The song is called Suicide Eyes.
So what did I call him?
Did you even watch the fucking video I sent you, Larry?
Oh, shit, I'm sorry, I'm taking a shit. Yeah, of course.
You didn't watch the video, did you?
No, I fucking didn't watch the video.
What am I supposed to do now?
I don't know, record this conversation or something. Don't you have the internet?
I'm gonna trying to AI your voice or something. I don't know.
Yeah, make me one of your AI, make me like one of your AI girls.
Oh my fucking god. Okay.
Can somebody bring me some toilet paper?
Let me see what I can do.
Speaking of eyes, I want to thank
Shotgun Facelift
providing a music video for us for this episode. I hope you guys enjoyed that. And last but certainly fucking not least, Steven from the Dead with My Friends podcast. That fucking guy has been crushing it. I've known Steven since the Horror Haven days, and I was always like, that's young me. That's fucking young me. And then he just like blew me out of the water. Him and the Dead with My Friends podcast, they're doing fucking all of the things that you want a horror podcast to do. So if you are not a fan already, become a fan, because they're fucking amazing. And you can buy a shirt from them. I would buy a shirt if I wasn't a whore. But I also want to thank all of you from the world of TikTok who submitted fucking opinions on sequels or remakes that were better than the original. It takes a lot of balls to voice your opinion in this new day and age where people are saying, well, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. So it's a ballsy move, and I'm very proud of you, every single one of you. And I also want to say, if you guys have made it this far and you're still listening to the sound of my voice, get to know us better. You can follow me on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook at Creature Pod. You can follow Dylan at _Haven on Instagram and TikTok. We have a Horrifying Tales of Horror TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. So all of that is HTOH Pod. You just search Horrifying Tales of Horror or HTOH Pod. That's going to get you where you need to go. So in the world of social media, those are the places to get a hold of us. But if you are a horror fan and you want to contribute to the Horrifying Tales of Horror podcast, reach out to us. Reach out to us on social media and tell us, hey, I have an idea for a segment. I have an idea for a sketch. I have an idea for a fucking true crime story. I have a music video that I'd love for you guys to share. I have a short film that I would love for your audience to see. And we will look at it, we will judge it, we will judge it harshly, and then we'll put it on the show. So, again, we say it all the time that the horror genre is not a fucking one thing. It's not just one specific thing, guy in a white mask stalks babysitters. That's not it. That's not all that it is. It's not some creepy house on the end of the hill and on the edge of the park. It's not just that. It's not spooky ghost stories. It's not just that. It's so many things. It's so many facets. It's a hybrid. It's a rainbow of all shapes, sizes, and colors. And every single one of these episodes, we get to show you that. And I'm just pleased as punch to be able to be a part of this. But we're going to get out of here. So for Dylan Jarvis, for fucking Steven, for David, for Sylvester, for fucking Suicide Eyes, for fucking Arlie, for Jennifer, for fucking my letterbox, which is at Creature Pod, and for you, the horror fan. This has been another episode of the Horrifying Tales of Horror on YouTube. Take care, guys.
I'm going to give this a shot. You ready?